All right, team, welcome back to the Ask Matty Show. We're going to have a great show for you guys today. You guys have some questions. A lot of charting is going to happen today, Matt. A lot of people are asking about Algorand, Ethereum, Casper. People are asking about the 4-year cycle. Is it over? We're going to get into those questions today. It's going to be a great show for you guys. Very disappointed, though, you guys weren't interested in some of the coverage we gave on Monday regarding the 3 bills. Because yesterday was so interesting for me. Matt, were you paying attention to what was going on yesterday?
Yeah, no, it was, as usual, a whole lot of theater, a whole lot of circus, and a whole lot of working against Americans' best interests. It makes my stomach turn.
Yeah, the House failed to come up with enough votes, and Trump went on a little bit of a tangent on Truth Social and got some representatives up to the Oval Office. And, these were it was like a dozen hardliners that were against the bill. And there were Republicans, Matt, and what they were saying is that the bill, the Genius Act, wasn't doing enough, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. It didn't explicitly outline that there would be no creation of a Fed coin, a CBDC, right? And so it was very interesting for me to hear that. So they're going to be doing another vote today. But I just thought it was interesting. I was like, we have these other 2 bills that are pending in the House. The House and the Senate both drafted up their own version of the Genius Act, and now the House is going with the Senate's bill. And I know it doesn't talk to a CBDC, but there are some insinuations there. There are some suggestive language in the Genius Act of that there would be in the future, like of another bill, like the anti-CBDC bill, that there would be no creation of a CBDC, because in the Genius Act, it explicitly says this act gives no more authority to the Federal Reserve. It gives clear distinction between a national currency and a stable coin, which are different, which would be like a CBDC, a digital dollar from Fed that's controlled and they can issue it. And you as an individual would have an account with the Fed, or a stable coin, which is, privately issued by stablecoin issuers. So there is a difference there, team. So I thought it was interesting. Maybe, I think my cleaning lady's here. Did you hear that ring on the doorbell right now? I'm going to go open my door for my cleaning lady. But Matt, can you give a breakdown for what we got going on at Crypto Charged?
Yeah, guys. So Crypto Charge, we do a education-based program. So we're going live Monday through Friday. We do an update, a lot of like what we do here on today's show with the charts. We also have our coin library where you guys are able to look at entry points, exit points, an analysis of why we believe what's going to happen is going to happen. We have, of course, lots of quick start resources, including our consistent investor strategy, lots of videos on charting, and our Discord community where you guys can ask questions. With code YouTube, you guys get 30 days free and 50% off any membership. That is either the monthly or the annual. You save almost another $100 a year if you guys go with the annual. So I'd encourage you guys to come check it out. It's really a great program, and we've really tried to continue to sharpen ourselves in the last 4 years.
Absolutely, Matt. All right, let's get into the questions for today. Shaw says, question, you mentioned Algo being a great guy, and I agree. You feel it will head back down to 17-20 cent range, worth accumulating some dry powder for this moment. Can you elaborate further?
Sure. So we can definitely talk about Algo. Do I think that Algo right now, after these massive impulses, is a great buy? Absolutely not. I hope that we're referencing the weeks and weeks and weeks that we talked about Algorand being a great payment alternative to XRP, based on where we are at structure-wise, based on where we're at pricing-wise. From the areas of interest, we'll go to the charts here. We basically had a big double bottom here. In April, you had about 15 cent as the low, and then you came pretty close to that over here in June, just very briefly throwing a wick down towards 15 cents, and then seeing a pretty sharp reversal after that. One of the things that we saw even with H-bar as well is that double bottom came in at some sort of previous support zone that was important to the market at some point. So we can see there was a bounce back here in December of 2022. We broke back over this level here in December of 23. We threw a few examples of support being tested here, and then obviously lost that support back in June and started to turn that back into a ceiling of resistance. So it was a very big deal that after this impulse here, and again, a lot of people after they saw this and they saw this correction, they go, that's it, Matt. Bull market's over, you dipshit, you missed it, right? You missed it. It's over, right? And really what was happening, and again, we look left to right here, and I want you guys to peel back this little micro view you have. Here's a low here in November of 23. Here's a higher low established here in November of 24. Here's another higher low established here in June of 2025. Yes, did this take a long time to develop these higher lows? 100%. But even from the low set here in August of 23, price is still up about 80% from there. Now, of course, what are we looking for? Looking more forward here, if we take a look at the Fibonacci sequence, We go swing high, swing low off the ultimate high, ultimate low here. We haven't even touched the 236 yet, meaning that there definitely is some more runway to get up into those previous levels where we see some imbalances. So 75 cents and then upwards of maybe $1.20. I am looking, like you mentioned, though, for some sort of pullback down into these levels here. So these are some pretty big tops to break over. I'm going to come out to the 3-day just so we can see this a little bit more easily here as a team. So you guys can see that this was a pretty big break over these tops, right? Big, pretty local tops here from February. Big local top failed reclaiming of support back here in March. And this was huge resistance back here in May, right? And that was a very big barrier for us to get over. So breaking up over this area was important. We could come down just as shallow as 25, and that might be good enough for the markets. In a perfect world, maybe we come down closer to like 22 cents. That would probably be the bigger value zone to pick up here. But there are still coins out there and opportunities that you don't have to be as tactical and patient with. The risk to reward just from the lower bound here, let's say you get just about 23 cents up into that 236 is roughly a 225% reward. So I think there definitely is a great swing trade to be had here. Of course, our big mantra at Crypto Charge is we do not buy big green candles because there's almost always going to be an opportunity for some sort of correction and better entry to add to. So yes, to some extent, your question is, should I be accumulating some dry powder in the moment? Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the better moves to make versus just YOLOing into a lot of coins. We saw this behavior, we saw these impulses here. Even some of my team that's been here for a little bit started to get that FOMO, started to get it building up in them, and we had to really kind of quell a lot of that behavior. So let's make sure we have a lot of that same emotional discipline now as we're kind of seeing the early forms of breakout in the altcoin market.
Fishing says 4-year cycle is over once utility kicks in. Institutions want stability. Worst mistake will be selling what you think is the top, and it never goes back down. The market is evolving, and you will get wrecked if you sell your XRP.
So I'm going to get wrecked by taking a 15x off the table with my XRP. I mean, that's just absolute nonsense. And I think that you're even contradicting yourself a little bit here. So first of all, 4-year cycle is over once utility kicks in. 4-year cycle is already over because we saw Bitcoin pop a new all-time high ahead of this whole halving schedule that everyone said created this intense supply shock. Not the case, right? It's always correlated with economic expansion and economic contraction, right? We see a very, very strong correlation between S&P 500 and Bitcoin, NASDAQ and Bitcoin. The reason is risk-on assets react to inflation, international conflict, overall sentiment, right? Like those things are always correlated tightly together. Sometimes we'll see days where crypto and the stock market acting a little bit differently, but for the most part, they trade together. Now, institutions want stability. So if they want stability, that would mean prices don't continuously go up, right? They would be trading sideways, right? So that really doesn't support your theory there at all. So one, I do not care what you think about me getting wrecked. I have a certain way that I invest and trade, right? I'm a little bit more of a trader than an investor to some extent because I am looking to exit much sooner than 10, 15, 20 years down the road. I want to compound those profits into another cycle. You know what? XRP could go, let's say, to $40 or $50. I'll still have 20% of my bag to handle that with and to make sure that I have some exposure on the table, but I don't need to hold everything into oblivion. How many times have we seen the story of Matt, institutions are here, this time is different, ETFs, blah, 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 blah. It does not matter. Bitcoin still sells off when Iran launches missiles, right? We still see the market react very negatively when CPI prints hotter than expected. It does not matter how bullish you are. Anytime you have high value tech, it is a very volatile space, and they always will react with whatever is happening in the overall economic environment. So I do not think I will sell the absolute top of every asset. Some stuff will go higher than what I think. Some stuff might not even get out all the way to every TP3 I get there. And that's part of managing and mitigating risk. It's part of the game. So yeah, I'm not going to nail every top here, but I guarantee you the power of compounding those gains into a next cycle, even if it's less than a discount that I think is going to be, I will absolutely make more money over a 10, 15, or 20 year period than you will just holding all of your assets forever and ever and never capitalizing on the volatility. That's part of the excitement of the opportunity within crypto is the volatility itself.
Hey, Maddie, can you go to the XRP chart and just flash how many days we had opportunity-wise to accumulate XRP? Because I feel like this will, give a little bit more clarity. Because if we see these big crashes and you have these large amount of time frames to accumulate XRP, it would kind of make sense to take profits and then buy back in when they crash again. So what was the time frame there?
So if we go from let's just call it 22 after we kind of really started to see those big breaks of support, and then we kind of have the lows setting here. So let's just call this kind of like our big area of deep accumulation. You had 450 days where price never breached 60 cents on XRP. We breached it a few times there. Mostly around 60 cents, almost 1,000 days from 2022 forward. And then you even look at this previous cycle here where you obviously kind of broke below there 2018, below 60 cents, roughly 1,000 days. So collectively, You had a lot around 2,000 days to buy XRP at 60-ish cents or less. So like I'm just thinking about this trade very differently than a lot of people are, right? It's not that I don't believe in XRP. It's not that I don't believe that XRP can achieve all these crazy numbers. But remember, there's people out there that are telling me, Matt, market cap doesn't matter. XRP, all the money, $10,000, right? But they don't realize that's a $580 trillion market cap. Cool. Let's just, let's just go ahead and take all the math of the world and blow it out the window, right? Like, do you guys even think about money supply? Do you guys think about how much money would have to be out there to even cover the amount of XRP that would be like, it doesn't make sense. So I try to keep my head, out of the clouds. I try to use both, technical targets as well as looking at market cap. And I want to capitalize on that volatility. We're out of that. We're getting into the exciting part of that volatility. You guys can see the crazy impulses we've had here. And as we get into this next set of impulses, I'm going to be taking something off the table. You don't have to, right? I'm not your dad. I'm not your financial advisor. You do what you want. But I know for a fact that these markets will correct, and they will correct hard. And you will wish that you took something off the table.
Transformation says, can we get another Casper TA before this Bitcoin fall in dominance?
So we'll also take a quick look here, just showing you guys Bitcoin dominance has actually been showing a lot of weakness over these last few days here. Actually get a pretty decent sized cascade. We got about almost 4% on Bitcoin dominance from the high that was developed here on June 27. Now that's not to say that dominance can't still see some additional moves higher here, right? Because I don't think Bitcoin's topped out yet, which is a good thing, right? That's a good thing that Bitcoin hasn't topped out yet, which also means though that we could still see climbs in dominance, which is overall a net positive thing. What you want to see is you want to see these pullbacks continue like this, where you get pullbacks like you saw back here in May, right? See alts get a chance to catch up, but then you want to see that continue to climb. Why? Because the higher dominance gets, the further it has to potentially fall and create that environment for altcoins to flurry as intensely as possible. Let's go take a look at the Casper. I just wanted to touch on dominance there because you did mention it as an important factor here. Let's take a look at what's going on with Casper. So first of all, I think that we've had some stability in here, and I think that that's just in itself a net positive thing. You've created a low in here that really has not been disturbed. In fact, you created a higher low here in April compared to the low that was set here in November after everyone and their mom was screaming that it was over and a dead chain and we all got our money rugged out from under us. No, nobody nobody reached into your wallet and pulled it out. You just made a very emotional decision. And we've also kind of created like a very clear range topping here. So I'd say this is actually a very range bound opportunity right now, which for me is the easiest DCA opportunity you could possibly get. We also have within here a pivot zone. We're on the daily chart here, team. You have a pivot zone in here, and basically we're riding that pivot zone. So you had some, decent support here before you had the final capitulation over here in October. You've had some support here in February of this year, turned into resistance, support, right? So this has been a meaningful level to the market. Let's just call it 1.1, 1.2 cents, give or take. So I think that we definitely are still in a very deep cumulative opportunity in here, and we have yet to even come and test some of the upper bounds of these previous resistance levels. Let's call it 4 to 5.2 cents. So, you look at the ascension that's occurring in here, the higher highs and higher lows on this trend line. What we have seen in a lot of assets is that you have these flags that are forming that are tactically at the end of downtrends, but what we're seeing across the market, across the board in the market, is an invalidation of these flagging structures. So basically you break over 2.6 cents and you start to actually close candle body closes over there. I think that we are really ready to start pushing towards 4, 5, and then eventually 10 cents and beyond. You're going to look back on this opportunity and you're going to ask me like, hey Matt, we broke over 5.2 cents. Should I start building a position now? You can, but you're going to have to start playing this leg by leg. You don't get the same flexibility of like, oh, I'm just going to do the trims, at 6 different levels. You're going to have to really have a more tight trim schedule when it comes to that. So look at the opportunity here, guys. Again, I want to remind you, even if you're not banging for all these new highs, right? You're like, whatever. I'm fine taking at a level where I know we've seen a lot of liquidity. 22 cents here from current market to 22 cents is an 18x opportunity. So, I could care less what Bitcoin's doing right now. I could care less about Ethereum and Solana and all these other assets that are super elevated compared to others. And I think that Casper is still the sleeping giant. So, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's not for everybody. Very small cap. A lot of developments with the Casper network as of late. And I think price is really one of the most depressed out of the alts that we cover on the show every single day.
Maddie, I think people are getting a little bit impatient with these altcoins. They're expecting them to see a blow off top right now. They expect Bitcoin setting new highs in price discovery, and they would expect their altcoins to be performing super well. But we have seen in the past previous bull runs that it does take some time for Ethereum to really get going or other altcoins. But we have seen in the past altcoins run ahead of Bitcoin. So it happens in both effects. If you're taking the most traditional sense, Maddie, I wanted to ask you this question. Do you think we're going to see the same thing this bull run where you've seen money flow out of Bitcoin into some of the large cap cryptos, into some of the mid cap cryptos, into some of the smaller cap cryptos? Or do you think it's kind to be, because we have all these cryptos now, do you think it's going to be kind of a little bit more blurry than that kind of strict mindset with that money movement?
Oh, I definitely think it's different this time around. I think that's, again, one of the things that's really upsetting people so much is that the pattern isn't staying exactly identical to what we've seen in the past, right? And any deviation of that, people are like, oh, that's just something's wrong here, right? But the markets never move in a 100% correlation. Like we even just talked about at the top of the show, I said there is a very strong correlation to the S&P 500 and Bitcoin, but not a 100% correlation, right? There are deviations. There are other ways that this can go about. I think that the original way that we were looking at is, okay, it goes from Bitcoin and then to ETH and to these other alts. A lot of that mindset and theology, and I have been around the space a long time, so I remember when these charts were becoming very big and everyone was very excited about them. Like you said, there was a much smaller amount of coins on market at the time. We had way less verticals, and Ethereum was almost like it's not an altcoin, right? But now that you have other large cap alts, right? You have XRP and Solana and other ones that are getting really, really big in market cap. Ethereum isn't kind of like in its own block anymore of like, oh, it's so important that Ethereum is the second one that receives, these big pushes in the market. So as you start to see more winners, right, and more larger caps emerge, you're not necessarily going to have that immediate exact rotation you're expecting. Just like in the stock market, right? As you start to have even the big tech giants out there, your Metas, your Googles, your Facebooks, whatever. Like, you have all of these giants out there, and they don't all move in the exact pattern, right? When the market moves, you see some asymmetric moves amongst them. So, I think that we'll continue to see participants get frustrated, do the hopping around because they think that they've got the pattern down, and miss out on a lot of opportunity by trying to think that they're going to just jump on the fastest horse as those horses are already racing.
Yeah, I like that. People want to say when there's smoke, there's fire, and their smoke is like the altcoins aren't setting new all-time highs right now, but that's not something we've seen in the past either. So, a lot of people, when they feel weird, when they see like one or two things on Twitter, it makes them feel weird. And so they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, all right, I'm not investing in altcoins anymore. I'm just going to continue with my Bitcoin purchasing, which is fine, which is better than doing nothing. But here, we're not just going to hear these narratives and go along with them, because these people don't forecast the future. Many people are wrong in their forecasts. Robert Kiyosaki was way wrong last year with his Bitcoin forecast, right? So all these people that are giving their forecast and trying to attribute these new things that have tacked on to the crypto market this time around that are new, like, Bitcoin setting a high at a different point than what everyone thought it was. You can't we're not hold to these parameters. We're breaking free from these parameters, right, Matt?
Absolutely. And I hope that we continue to learn that over time is like, yes, can we look at market cycles? Can we look at how just general market behavior is? Can we look at a lot of indicators that help us potentially make some good decisions for our investing 100%? But if you think, oh, well, October's been generally statistically a good month, so I need to be invested before October, right? Like anything like that. And that there is just a general statistic based on, again, incredibly limited data, right? You guys are basing those decisions based on data. And again, you look at the altcoin market, let's just call it 2016, 2017 forward for the majority of alts, right? We're talking about just under 10 years of total data, and you're like, yep, that's the probability that I'm going to be basing my entire investing thesis off. Like, my God, do you guys not work hard for your money? Like, I sure hope that you do, and you want to add more into it, and you just don't use timelines as your expectation. Because you know what happens more often than not, and I hate to see it, and sometimes I have these conversations with clients, is they, at the time when things are bullish, I'm like, all right, let's make sure we're investing what we can, afford here. I just want to make sure that the market's hot, blah, 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 right? You go, no, it's fine, Matt, it's fine, Matt. Just show me how to put the money in, we'll get it all in, right? And you fast forward, and the market hasn't done what they expected to do in a certain time, and they're like, I need to make some reductions in my portfolio, and unfortunately, some of this stuff isn't, where I wanted it to be, and I have to make some, some unfortunate decisions, right? And I hate to see that, but that is the reality. So trying to time the market mixed with getting emotionally involved with what the market's doing is an absolute recipe for disaster. So I implore you guys to throw your timeline, out the window. Have maybe an expectation of like, hey, I would love to see something great in whatever, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. But if you tie your direct expectations to that, you will always make terrible decisions.
I love that. I think we're going to cap it off right there. I think that's a good point to cap it off there. I know we had an Ethereum one here, but I know you guys. I know what you guys are interested in. XRP, Casper. You guys aren't interested in. We have one person here interested in Ethereum. So if you really want that charting, Maddie will do it. Maddie always does the charting of all the different markets. on Friday. So you can get that at Crypto Charge. So get that over there. We just don't have enough time here. We're already almost at 20 minutes. If you got something valuable here, team, make sure you leave a like. And if you have any more questions, leave in the comment section down below. We will be back next week to cover some more crypto news. I'm really, really mad at you guys that you guys didn't appreciate the coverage on Monday. So we'll be back next Monday to cover the things you guys like to hear about, updates with Casper, updates with XRP, some of the cryptos that I know you guys will care about, because that hurts. I hate waking up on Tuesday morning and having you see, oh, they didn't respond like I thought it would. We put so much effort into the show. We did a 33-minute show and they're just not receiving it, right? So, oh well, team, you guys let me down. Do not let me down ever again, all right? And I won't bring the, Matt, we won't bring this, crypto legislation. We won't cover it anymore if it's really not that interesting for you guys. So,
well, you still have time, guys. You guys can still go show some love. It's not too late.
All right, team, we will see you guys next week. Bye.